she does marketing, social media marketing for some businesses here in town. Just for some local businesses here in town. So she does their social media marketing, stuff like that. She's married to Court Steele. So, and he's with Carlson's Financial.
Oh. He's not Steel Construction.
No, he's not.
Steel?
Nope, same Steele. It's his boy.
Okay.
But that wasn't for him.
Sure. Could be interesting.
So he would do his own thing, and
He settles in.
that's what he's doing. Yeah.
That's great.
Don't hurt yourself over there.
Yeah, I'm hoping that my other daughter, Lincoln, she's a CPA in Lincoln.
Hi, Mark.
And her husband right now is going through dental school, and he's from here. And so I'm not sure if they'll come back here, but I think they'll come back to maybe a surrounding community somewhere. So
Thank you for your market for that too.
especially in the rural areas. Much isn't going to be.
Ready over there?
Well, you picked a good time to join up.
That's what I understand.
Okay, everybody, here we go. City Council Budget Work Session, Thursday, August 25th, 2022 at 5 p.m. here in the City Hall Council Chambers. Let's see. We have a call to order, so calling the meeting to order here. And roll call, please, Angie.
Nisley, Tryon. Here. Bowles.
Here.
Lucas.
Here.
Garrett.
Here.
Flanders.
Here.
Baker.
Here.
Woods.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Nisley happens to be traveling tonight. That's why he's not here. The current copy of the Open Meetings Act of the State of Nebraska is posted on the wall at the back of the council chambers. And this is a budget work session. This is not a normal formal meeting, so no formal vote or action will be taken at these meetings. Again, no formal vote or action will be taken at these meetings. We will be discussing the city budget for 2022 and 2023. We'll be starting with some presentations. But before we go there, I just want to remind the council, we run these work sessions kind of informally, so you don't need to request the floor. Just ask your question. Please try to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak when they need to. So instead of requesting the floor, you can just ask your question of the presenter or whomever, and everyone will do their very best to answer it. As you can see, we have several organizations with it, as well as many of the city directors here to answer questions regarding their budget, should anyone have any. Okay. So to start out with, we have, if you go over to page 2, excuse me, just want to mention on page 1, there is the budget schedule on there, so please take a note of that if you haven't already. On page 2, first up, we have a request from LCCDC. Where are they? Oh, there they are. I knew I saw them when I walked in. Okay. I would just request that you limit your remarks to about 5 minutes if possible.
How about 3 minutes?
That'll be even better.
Or 2.
So, okay.
Hello, my name is Erin Anderson. I'm the
Oh,
director.
Aaron, would you make sure you get the mic so that the folks at home can hear you? Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Erin Anderson. I'm the executive director for Lincoln County Community Development Corporation. I am new to the job as of June 13th of this year. In the past years, the city has donated or assisted Lincoln County Community Development with $11,250 annually, and that is all we are asking for today. We have partnered with the city since 1996, and our board of directors is extremely grateful for this relationship, and we'd like to continue it. We've met with Lane and had a really good meeting, which we really appreciated your time. We wish to continue this partnership, provides housing services to Lincoln County, North Platte, and one neighborhood at a time, and changing the landscape. So that's our goal.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
No. Thank you.
Oh, hold on. Got a question.
What are your sources of funding?
We have trust fund grants through the DED. We now have 3 grants through the DED and a rural workforce housing that we're using also. So,
And what range of housing prices do you try to work in?
Low to medium income homes. We just sold 2 homes in Sheridan Estates. We built 2 homes, and those were sold 2-bedroom, 1 full bath for $145,000
And
with our
those,
funds.
was that all contract labor that built them?
Yes, yeah, local. Everything was local.
That includes the lot price and everything?
Yes, yes.
And how many square feet were they?
1,200.
Did that include a garage too?
Yes, yeah. They're family starter homes, pretty much, so. Yeah, those are the kind of homes we will be building for a little while, so we have a contractor that has the cookie cutter for them, so. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Aaron, real quick, could I ask you a question?
Yes.
How many homes over the next year do you guys think you'll be able to build?
What I want and what we will probably accomplish, I'm hoping within the next year, I'm hoping 4 or 5. We have lots. We have 7 lots right now, and we're ready to build. We have 1 that needs to be demoed, so yeah, we're ready to go.
What's the biggest limiting resource for you guys? Is it money? Is it time? Is it contractors, or what?
All of the above. Yep,
Okay.
and prices, right now, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not, okay.
Thank you. Everyone, council, you'll notice that we have a letter from Nebraska Land Days that is typical. Mr. Fudge could not be here tonight, so I don't see anybody from Nebraska Land Days here, so we'll skip them for the moment.
Just real quick, he did shoot me an email,
Okay.
just making us aware that they collected $25,322 of sales tax generated during the festival. So that's pretty good ROI on our money.
Okay.
So just wanted to bring that point out.
Thank you. Next, we have North Platte Chamber and Devco. Mr. Pearson?
Mayor Kelleher, council members, staff. North Platte, or Gary Pearson, President and CEO of the North Platte Area Chamber of Development. You've certainly seen more of my share of times over the last couple of years. But our Chamber Development Corporation certainly appreciates the great partnership we share with the city of North Platte, serving as your economic development arm. The strong partnership, which also includes the county, the schools, and 600 private sector business partners, have made considerable progress the past couple of years. Coming off 2021, in which Governor Pete Ricketts named North Platte the Nebraska Community of the Year for our economic and community development work and progress. And we now have $1 billion of new development projects moving forward or emerging, presenting wonderful opportunities for the North Platte and Lincoln County area over the next several years. And we're right in the middle of all of it. Our challenges will be many, but by continuing to work together on solution-based efforts, we can meet those challenges. Our strategic 5-year plan of action from 2020 to 2025 is heading towards the halfway point, with many of the 29 strategic goals either achieved or within our sights. Certainly, workforce and housing will be among the greatest challenges we all face to fill the many jobs coming our way. Most of these projects have come through the city processes, so you are quite familiar with them. Many of them are game changers for our community's well-positioned future, and certainly I could go into details on any of the projects out there, but I know you've got a lot ahead of you tonight, and the mayor's shaking his head no. So we also administer and facilitate project proposals for the city's Quality Growth Fund, which recently helped fund the downtown improvement facades, District 177, Sustainable Beef, and the rail park. We're expecting a couple of new small business loan proposals to come before you in the very near future. Come off of North Platte's 4th best construction year on record, and those records could likely be shattered in the years straight ahead. The only thing that can stop our momentum is ourselves. We appreciate your continued investment in our economic development efforts. We thank you for the great support of these many projects. Been wonderful to work with, and we'll continue to hopefully have that strong relationship for many, many years to come.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions before he sits down? Shocking. Okay, go ahead. Just kidding. Next, we have an organization that has no vowels in their name, so I can't come up with, I know what it is. I'm just trying to make fun of it. It's Keep North Platte, Lincoln County Beautiful. I was going to try and make something about the vowel, and then Lane interrupted me, so I missed that. That's okay.
It's a mouthful to say, but it's even harder to remember all the letters like without the words. So you just kind of start spinning them out. My name is Christy Deckert, and I am here in place of Mona Anderson, our executive director. I'm the current sitting president of our board, as well as serving on the board for Keep Nebraska Beautiful. And firstly, on behalf of the board and Mona and everyone else, I just want to say thank you guys for your continued support and for the strong partnership between the city of North Platte and Keep North Platte, Lincoln County Beautiful. As far as our role in the city, we are a 501c3 organization and a Keep America Beautiful affiliate. The majority of our funds come from the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy. We operate on 3 pillars: litter abatement, recycling, education and systems, and beautification, which is funded through special use grants only. The grants for the city that we've been able to help procure or secure over the past 5 years equal to the tune of about $750,000 and include things like the tree shredder, the light bulb grinder, new recycling bins at the drop-off points, the Memorial Park pickleball, and the Keith Blackledge Park, as well as Burlington, where we got all the trees finally going up there. Some other kind of fun numbers that we really love that we feel help out the beautification of our city and also to kind of keep costs down a little bit for you guys, I guess. We cover 320 miles of cleanup routes in the county, which picks up about 10 tons of litter per year. We have over 5,000 volunteers who have clocked over 9,000 hours. 5,000 people is like 5% of our town that we can, or 20% of our town, 1 out of 5, that we can get to come and participate, which is great. And that's to about the tune of $250,000 if we had to pay for people to go pick up all that litter, but we get volunteers, so that's great. Also, beautification efforts, of course, Burlington, Keith Blackledge Park, small business micro grants, Adopt a Spot, the community garden, and things of that nature. We feel like all of these efforts provide for economic development of our communities, which we are very passionate about, and that's one of our big focuses moving forward. We provide clean, green, beautiful towns for families, workers, and visitors, and we believe that providing a community where businesses want to come to locate their business and workers want to come work, people want to raise their families, that's how we bring people in and keep people here and keep people engaged. We believe that first impressions are lasting impressions, and we want people to reinvest in our community. And so that's what we do and what we're all about. And again, we want to thank you guys for our continued partnership, and we look forward to working with you guys in the future.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Christy?
Okay, thanks.
I would add to what
Hold
Christy said. Part of what they do for us is on the stormwater side, as far as education for people on the stormwater, not putting oils and things down the stormwater system. And so that's part of what some of this funding is for that stormwater education. And it's a big part of helping us to keep that part of our MS3 goals and our plan together. So.
Yeah, and we're kind of like a let us know what we can do to help you group, so let us know.
Thank you. Last but not least on the list, we have a new organization, the Canteen District Inc. Is that you, Shay? Okay.
As the mayor said, I am Shay Caldwell. I am the president of the Canteen District Incorporated, which is a fairly new group for downtown. With the renovations in the Canteen District, we knew we wanted to keep going, but we weren't really sure how. We explored the option of a business improvement district, creating our own EEA district, and then finally through research and many conversations, a nonprofit was formed to enable us to write and manage grants and ask for a small piece of your budget. We are currently in the final stages of a creative district certification, which comes with an initial $10,000, and we will then continue on to the next workbook, which will potentially grant us $250,000. As you can see in the SWOT analysis and our 5 and 10-year goals that we presented to you, we do have some big plans, and so we're asking for your help to get started on those goals.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Shay?
Shay, are the local businesses contributing to this fund?
No. So we still have the Downtown Association, and that is funded by business memberships. And so when you're funded by business memberships, you can't apply for the nonprofit status that we applied for. So we created a separate group. We still work together, but we created a separate group. And so our funds are totally separate from the Downtown Association funds.
So what are the Downtown Association funds? What do they actually fund with their?
Those funds are used to create awareness of downtown, create events such as all of the Christmas events that you see, the Kids Fest, the parade, those types of things, Ladies Night Out. So any events that are planned in the downtown, those are typically funded through that. You know, in the past however many years that it's been a group, it's really fun. It's been the only funding source. Now that our needs are bigger and we're growing, we had to come up with this way of generating more income.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shay.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, I'm going to kind of hand the meeting over to Lane and Dawn, who, let's be honest, are the real experts here. So thank you all for coming. Those of you that are sneaking out of the room, we appreciate it.
Well, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure as city staff to be able to present the budget, proposed budget to you for 22-23. I have a few slides we're going to start out with, and then we'll have some time for question and answer on the different things that we have in front of you. I wanted to start out with the property tax levy and valuation history. You have a page in your book, page 15, that is very similar to this slide that I have. As you see, our valuation for about 5 years stayed exactly the same from 2016 through 2020. We had a slight decrease last year where our asking amount was the same, but I wanted to highlight some things. As you know, probably from the paper, we had a very sizable change in overall valuation. When they do about every 4 or 5 years, they do a valuation evaluation. And so if you look back on this slide that I have in front of you, it's a little different from your book. You see in 2013, 2014, and then also in 2017, 18, with some pretty sizable valuation changes. And now we're at that cycle again in 22, 23. And you can see in those 3 years that are highlighted, the change in the city tax asking amount. In 2013, it was about 850,000. 2017, a little over 560, and then this year, with the valuation change, we're at 485,000. To highlight that, though we do have an increase in tax asking amount, our levy is going down from 44,224 down to 43,89. So I just wanted to highlight that it's kind of cyclical. Then we estimate if this same kind of cycle continues, the next 2 or 3 years we'll see pretty much a flat tax asking amount and valuation, and the levy will stay fairly flat again. That's kind of the way the city levy's gone over the past 10 years or so. So I just wanted to point that out.
Lane, if you were to look, or Dawn, if you were to look back even further, would we see a similar pattern? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not certain of that, Mayor, but we sure could get the data.
I was just curious if it was a normal, 3 times in a row creates statistical consistency, so that's close enough, I guess, but I was just curious.
The next slide is also in your book, and it shows last year for Lincoln County, our tax district, District 3 levels, where your property taxes go. The schools are a little over 53%. You take the city of North Platte and the airport authority, which does fall under us, is right at 25% to get combined 21.6 and 3.35. And then the other taxing entities there make up the other almost 25% between the county, the resource district, et cetera. So just wanted to point that out. That's when you get your tax bill, that's how it's broken out. Budgeted revenue for this upcoming year. If you see in the dark blue, a little over about 8.7 million, that's our beginning cash balance. Now, if you remember back a few years ago, we didn't have much of a beginning cash balance at all, usually around the $2 million mark. And so we made great strides there. And you can thank our department heads all sitting behind us for really watching their budgets, making good spending decisions, and being smart about how we use the city money. Part of that's also because of our sales tax revenues have been very strong, but a lot of that is just trying to watch that budget and keep our spending as low as possible. And so that's, it's the efforts of the entire city organization that really made that cash balance change happen. We tend to budget our revenues pretty conservatively. And if you'll notice in your packet, page 18, which shows our revenues, our budgeted revenues for this current year, 21-22, and that includes our cash balance was 36.1 million. We're estimating we're actually going to be at almost 39.8 million. Part of that's an increase in the cash, and part of it's some of these other line items. And then budgeted because of that 8 million, almost 9 million carryovers, 42 million. But if you take just new revenues, it's about 32.5 million or so with that. So just wanted to point out that we do budget pretty conservatively on our revenues. I'm guessing our revenues will come in stronger again next year than what we budgeted, but I'd rather budget conservatively than be pretty overly optimistic and not have as much revenues come in as we would hope for. So the following page that I have on screen is not in your book, but this is our overall general fund. We met in small groups earlier in the month regarding where our general fund budgets were going to be. At the time, we were estimating about a $1.6 million increase in our budget. What we presented to you is about a 1.8 million. We talked about some things with the police department. They're going to have enter into a contract with the hospital, provide some security things there that added. We did also, in that meantime, because of some struggles we've had in the sanitation department, we added one full-time person back. We had cut that person out about 3 years ago, and we've been suffering for it because of lost time and things. And so we added that back in there as well. And just went with our some more historical or where we're sitting year to date and just made some tweaks to the budget. So it's a little over 1.8 for the increase. And so I just wanted to point that out. It's a little more than we were hoping for, but some real world things with inflation and things just made us adjust it just to be safe on those things. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the general fund overview. As far as where we're hoping to be going forward, all the departments continually look for ways to cut expenses, ways to stretch our dollars, and ways to maximize what our people are able to do with the equipment we have and the things available. Our biggest struggles this year, as everyone knows, has been inflation and the cost of goods and services. That's probably hit our bottom line as hard as anything, and we were still able to come in under budget. I think when we talked, we were thinking maybe 2.4 million under budget this year in spending. Current numbers that I just ran yesterday were closer to 2.7. So all the departments have continued to really watch their budgets and strive to stay under budget. Generally, we are a little conservative in what we estimate too, so we may actually surprise ourselves on that number as well, which helps our bottom line at the end of the day, so.
Lane, when you make your projections for next year, how much inflation did you factor into your cost?
It really varied depending on different departments. We just looked at what our historical things have been for this year and on past years, and so some things, concrete we've had pretty good relationships on that, so we've been able to keep that a little flatter, but as far as when we get to municipal light and water, transformers are up about 3 times what they cost a couple of years ago. Pipes, 2.5 times higher for pipe. And so we tried to look at each budget and look at different things and just, it really wasn't across the board on any one number. It just varied on the different areas of the departments.
I think you have an interlocal agreement with the county on fuel. Is
Yes,
that
we do.
right? Now, on that particular commodity, well, gasoline and diesel both, do you do any forward contracting on that to try to lock in your costs, or how does that work?
We've looked into that, but when we've done some historical evaluating on that, there's times when you would have benefited greatly from locking in. There's times when it would have cost us quite a bit of money. And so we just, as we need fuel, we bid that out, usually on a weekly basis almost. And so we just go with the best we can. In a year like this, we would have benefited greatly, but on 2 years ago when we were paying less than $1.50 wholesale for fuel, if we would have locked in at the start of that year, it would have cost us quite a bit of money. And so at this time, I don't know if it makes a lot of sense to lock in. It's just too volatile, and you'd win some and lose some. Maybe in the long run it balance out, but I'm a little wary of that.
Thank you.
And with the county, we did increase the interlocal agreement from $500,000 this past year with county fuel to $675,000 in the next year, which does reflect both on our expenditures and on our revenue side with that interlocal agreement. Because of what fuel did, the county did actually, we did, talked with them, and they are paying above that $500,000 because they spent more than that on fuel. They're paying for their actual fuel, but that's what we do for the interlocal.
Thank you.
Lane, does the cash reserve numbers in here include the 2.7? So is that included in the starting cash estimation point?
Yes, it is, yep.
Okay.
It's all together.
And so per the budget, am I right that the end point's about 7.5? So it's budgeted to burn roughly $1 million, knowing there's some contingency in that?
Correct.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
Yep. And, we knew there was gonna be some things as far as wages. We had talked about back in February as far as the wage in the budget. And the wage impact was greater than what our actual budget increase is. And that's because we looked for other ways to find cost savings and cuts. And part of that was also because we do have a strong cash position now with our cash reserve. Contingency past years was always kind of the only thing we had in case something major happened to the budget to protect us. Now that we have a cash reserve, we've dropped that contingency from 1.2 million down to 700,000, which helped the overall budget as well. And we'll continue to watch that going forward.
Mr. Mayor, real quick, just out of curiosity, does each department head come up and give a spiel, or is this our time to ask questions in particular? I can't remember how this worked last year.
Go ahead, Lynn.
They generally do not. If you have questions for them, that's why they're here, but they generally don't. If they have something big for new capital expenditures, we would have them come up, but we don't have any real surprises in this budget, so this is just basically operating. But if you do have any specific questions, that's
Okay.
why they're here.
Well, real quickly, I was just, we've talked about HR and potential for another accounting person in there. Have we reflected it? It looked like we
Yes.
reflected it in our accounting and finance budget to me.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes,
And then the difference, there were discrepancies between development and engineering. Looks like we made the switch over in the payroll to to bring development, some of development into engineering?
We
Okay.
had 3 members of the development team switch over to engineering. This budget does have in there adding another compliance officer to
My
get up to
next
2.
question, thank you.
And that's also for our stormwater compliance as well. That person would do a double role. It has the HR, additional accounting functions in there. As I mentioned, the sanitation addition as well.
Good.
So,
Good.
and the
Okay.
police officers that we talked about,
Yep.
with the contract with
hospital.
that, so.
Yep, perfect.
So this is all reflected in there going forward.
Okay, figured it was.
Lane, on the stormwater, do we have to, I believe there's some monitoring required with that. What all do we have to do in those lines, and what kind of testing do we have to provide the federal government?
Some of that's just starting, so we're just getting into putting a plan together with that. And Brent couldn't be here tonight. He could talk better on that, but there is some monitoring you have to do. Any new developments from here on out have to have a plan in place for stormwater retention and monitoring. We're still looking at different options as far as how to pay for that. So, because the developer has to have that in their plan. Let's say they're putting in 20 housing lots or something. But, once they sell all those, who's there to continue to pay for that? And so we're looking at some different ways. Maybe it's a stormwater assessment fee or something, or maybe they pay a certain amount of dollars up front when they do a development that goes into a fund that would continue to pay for that monitoring, because there is yearly monitoring that you have to do once those are in place, and that's through the stormwater plan. It's another one of those unfunded mandates from the feds.
No, I understand very well.
Lane, there was one other thing I was thinking, and it came in the library just with some requests we had earlier in the year on the elevator and that. I noticed that the maintenance on the library was a lot higher this year than it will be next year. Where are we, is that, man, it could be a roof or something, I can't remember, I don't know what we're at.
What we're hoping, and it's either gonna come out of contingency or come out of maybe ARPA funds. That's what we talked about a little bit as far as the library roof, about $105,000. It'll get started here shortly, which original estimates were a lot higher than that. And then the library elevator, it's, we've put it out for bid as far as repairing or replacing that, and we're estimating anywhere from 125 to 250,000, and that is also either contingency or possible ARPA funds for that as well. So, unfortunately,
Waste?
we've looked at some different options. The chairlift or some different things. That's not a good plan.
I think we've talked to everyone who's ever touched an elevator for about 500 square miles around us in an effort to try to fix that thing, and it's gonna go the way of the dodo bird, I think, is what's gonna happen. So Lane, just a general informational for the folks at home and the rest of us. We've seen definitely, as a result of inflation, increases in the dollar figures in the budget. There's no question about that. And you and I have talked about this multiple times, so I'm not surprising you with this question, but would you just sum up real quickly, generally, where are the major categories of expense increase?
The major categories of expense were in personnel costs and in fuel were the two major ones. We didn't increase our concrete budget and trying to keep the budget flat, and so that just means we'll pour less concrete. Once the money's out, we'll just pour less concrete. Another major increase is our salt for roads. Last year it was about $53 a ton, and I think right now it's about $72 a ton for the salt. We did go away from a mixture that had magnesium in it, because that added another $30 or $40 a ton, and just going straight salt, which was what we used this last year, and we had good luck with that. And so it's trying to look for some ways to save, because unfortunately you put salt down and tomorrow it's gone, but it has a role to play when you have to put it down on the ice. But those are probably our major increases. Some of the other things, the departments just decided they would do with less and try to keep some of those line items flat. So that even though we had increases, we're gonna go a year or two probably having to cut some corners on some things.
Do you pre-treat any of the streets, Lane, with the brine solution?
We do not. It's something we've looked into, but we haven't gone seriously in that direction yet. But I know that there's some things out there, some newer technologies that we'll continue to evaluate to see if it would make sense in our situation.
I guess what I'm looking at primarily is, well, certainly the cost, but the opportunity to maybe reduce the salt load that gets into the environment.
One of the things that, there's some additional equipment, so the initial cost would be higher, but there may be some cost savings in the long run that we're still evaluating on that.
Hey, Lane, I'll just give you an example. Did you give any consideration to trying to push that mill levy under a .40 to get a 3 in front of it? It'd take about $700,000. And I think, this isn't a suggestion necessarily, it's more of a, want to understand, the strategy more than anything. But that would be about a $700,000. It wouldn't scare me that much to think we would have some sales tax growth, especially with all the construction that's appearing to move forward next year, which would be taxable materials in most cases. And I guess, was there consideration to trying to take it below the big 4.0 number? That in Nebraska, that's considered, or a lot of people see that as maybe a low mill levy town versus a medium or high mill levy town. So I just want to know if you guys thought, or what you think of that type of strategy.
We didn't, for this year, we didn't look at trying to get under that 4.0 number, but long-term, we want to continue to drive that mill levy down. I guess part of with having a cash reserve and now a dedicated cash reserve, one of the questions I'm going to be asking the council in the next few months is, what do you want that cash reserve number to be? We've seen towns anywhere from 18 to 30% of their general fund being their cash reserve. At our little over 7 million level, we'll be about 22%, which is fantastic. I'll need some direction from council. Do we think it should be 25%, 20%, 30%? But once we get to that cash reserve level, then it's going to be a lot easier for us to really start pushing that mill levy down. I mean, I'm a little nervous right now just because some things are still a little unknown as far as going forward to push it down too far. I mean, we're always cognizant of the taxpayers, and so that's something we do consider greatly on that. But once we get to that cash reserve level where we feel that that's where we should be as a city, it's going to be a lot easier to work forward going to try and push that down.
Okay. Well, that makes sense to me. I think a good goal for us to get under 4.0 in a reasonable time period is a good objective for the city.
I think once, if we continue to see strong sales tax growth and we also look at those, maybe going to some more user fees to support some of the city budget, we can sure keep striving for that. Because when we talked about possible user fees and some different occupation taxes on the skill games and some different things, if we could knock a couple cents off our mill levy with those things pretty easily, they would make it, that goal would become a lot quicker, be able to make it a lot quicker.
I think we could do it now and justify it, but I like your strategy of getting the cash reserve to a stronger position first.
You might give Don and I a little bit of sleepless nights if we push too hard too fast.
I hear you.
Any other questions on the general budget? Anything for any of the department heads as far as the general side?
I just have something I more want to make a point about. So, Mr. Reeves in the back there. Steve. Sorry. I have a quick question. So the other day you mentioned in a meeting, I thought I heard you say that we're relatively close to having a fully staffed police force. Did I misunderstand you, or is that the case?
You did not. I just stepped out to meet with the Civil Service Commission. They certified 3 certified police officers. If we get all of them successfully through the background, we will be back to 41.
Okay. So we have a reasonable chance in the next few months of having a fully staffed police force then?
Much more than I thought we had a year ago.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, had we not got some certified people, we wouldn't be where we're at, and we're very fortunate. I don't think it's any cheap wizardry, but, we had to get the wages where they needed to be, and then we had some equipment and training upgrades, and our people seem to have come around in a positive way, reacted positive to that, and they're out telling people, hey, put your application in. So I didn't go trying to pirate anyone's police department. It's our people delivering the message, and that's how we got to where we got. So it's just needing to whittle away a couple, 3 different pieces that
that I assisted with, but after that, it was just people spreading the word.
Well, that's good news, and Steve kind of inadvertently made my point. We did not plan this, obviously, but I just wanted to point out that one of the things that we had been running with for a fair amount of time in the city of North Platte was our policemen were underpaid significantly, not just a little bit, not in all job categories, but in many job categories. And we fixed that in this budget, and that's one of the reasons the salaries are just a little bit more. It's not a significant number, but it's one of the reasons. And when you're running a business or a government, it's one of those things you have to pay attention to. If you're not competitively paying the people around you, you're not going to get the people to work for you. And we were a few policemen away from being in a real trouble with being able to appropriately staff our city. And now, by fixing one thing among others, we're getting pretty close to being in good shape here. So that's exciting. Thank you.
Things look very good.
Yeah.
Lane, one other question. Chief Reeves' comments kind of spurred me on this.
Sorry, Steve.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
There's been some discussion about public safety building, remodeling, or probably new construction. Are we looking at that? Have we appropriated funds to where we're actually gonna be looking at the feasibility and the probability and how we're gonna fund some type of upgrades?
Yes, it's not reflected in the general budget. It's under the CARES Act's money that we got a year and a half, 2 years ago. About a $45,000 study, I think, that we're going to commission to do that overall study on the public safety building. And that'll be CARES Act and not property tax or city taxpayers' money. That's CARES Act money that we got almost 2 years ago.
And when do you anticipate those results to be in?
We need to get the budget passed, and then we'll actually move forward with that study, so I'm not sure how long that will take. Chief, have you had any conversations on that?
No, I kind of envision that we'll get through this budget process and then work on a request for proposal. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it came up $45,000 only because I asked him that, and he kind of had a background in that, so that's where I got that dollar figure. I don't really know what it's going to be. If we ask, put a request for proposal out there and see where it comes in.
Thank you, I'm encouraged by that. I did actually go through the public safety building the other day, and I guess my back confirmed that I don't bend like I used to. The Chief Thompson there just about had to help me, but I managed to get out. But, I don't know if anybody else has been in that building, but, these guys have been, it's an amazing building, it really is. I mean, they showed me where they cut cores through the walls to put conduits and this or that in there, and I don't know, the walls are 8 to 10 inches thick probably. And apparently a lot of the utilities are cast right in the walls, so the sewers are cast right in the concrete, and I don't know how old that building is, but they have a definite life expectancy, and some of those have deteriorated so badly that they've had to abandon some of the toilets and sinks in the building, and I think I'm really greatly, I appreciate the fact that we're looking into that, because this has to be a priority.
Yep.
Thank you, Lane.
We'll be bringing the request for RFPs to go before the council to release those, then getting those back. So that's part of this coming year.
Thank you.
Ty?
Lane, what, in terms of that, is it a kind of a general feasibility study? Is it a remodel versus build type study, or is it more focused on where the most efficient locations might be?
Chief, you got anything to add to that? It could be any of the above, yeah.
Okay. So it's just looking at the whole problem and what's the best way to solve it?
yeah, sometimes they ask for staffing type assistance in there, growth, projected growth. They usually, I'm told that about 20% above what you have now. But they would come in, meet with Chief Thompson and I, determine what we have, what we need, and then they could recommend a remodel, they could recommend a move. They'll look at potential sites that you have available that the city owns and determine if any of them would fit the bill for what they're recommending, and then give you an approximate cost of your project.
Okay, great, so real
Routinely have
comprehensive then.
people ask me, what's it
Yeah.
gonna cost? I don't have any idea. So it'd be helpful to know.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, that sounds great.
And on top of that, one of the things we would look at, is possibly combining other city, maybe city hall, maybe public service, maybe everything together, because, there would be some economies of scale when you have all staffing in one place. There's some benefits to having it spread out, but there's also some benefits maybe this study would show to having people together long-term and having, a modern building is gonna function better. You look at your spacing, you look at where your staff should be and things, and so hopefully that'll all be taken into account as, depending on how we write the RFP for that. Any other questions on the general side? Okay.
Keep going.
One thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about the levy, I would point out, if we would have just kept our levy flat from what it was last year at the 44.22, that would have been about an additional $60,000 in tax asking amount, and so that, we were cognizant of that, and we're working to lower that levy when we can. As far as the municipal light and water budget, it's a little confusing with how municipal light and water works. We have the operating side, and then we have the capital side. And I look at all three departments together as the public works director, looking at those three budgets. Even though they're each separate, I look at the overall impact together, and they're a little over a $30 million budget with the three together, about $34 million. Our increase on those budgets on the operating side is about $1.4 million. $600,000 of that, though, is attributed to a water bond that is coming on this year. So that's really a lot of that increase, and I don't remember if we showed that in the operating side or the capital side, but I just wanted to point out one of the big increases on that part of that municipal light and water budget this year is that bond that comes on. Capital-wise, you'll see some pretty significant increases in capital. A lot of that, as we've already talked about, is the inflationary costs of those things that we have to have always ready, especially on the electric side, transformers, and Scott can kind of attest to this, what those are costing us, and we always have transformers on hand in case a storm rolls through, and we also always have to be looking at future development, because you want those ready when a development's ready to go online. I think last time, Scott, you told me 80-some weeks out on transformers? A year to 2 years out on transformers. So we've ordered some, we anticipate, we always keep some on hand, so, but we have to keep that in mind. It's not like something wiped out our on-hand stock today, we can't replenish it in the next 6 weeks. It's quite a ways out, so that's driving some of it. Same with pipe, pipe's gone up 2.5 times. Wire's up tremendously, and so on our capital side, that was really, we adjusted a lot of those capital projects to reflect these increases in commodity prices. The other thing on the capital line items, there's a number of subdivisions and different things that are mentioned in there. A lot of those are placeholders. Those aren't necessarily going to take place this year, but we leave them in the budget for placeholders when development does happen. And so a lot of that money in the capital projects is not probably going to be spent this year, is not intended to be spent this year, but we keep those as placeholders going forward because we're looking for that anticipated growth in those projects to come through. As far as electrical, part of what Scott is doing in some of the older parts of town is taking your overhead lines and burying those and putting them in underground lines, which long-term is going to save us money because you have less storm damage and things. And so that's some of our capital expenditures. We have some water line replacements. In the next couple of years, we're going to be forced by the federal government to get rid of all the lead service lines going into residents. I think we're estimating $12 million in costs at least on that, Leroy. And so that's some things we're starting to budget for as well. One other thing that really affected the budget is the sustainable beef. They got $20 million from the state for wastewater treatment plant. That actually has to come to the city and be owned by the city, and so we showed that as part of our budget as far as that $20 million expenditure that would not have been there previous. And so that was kind of the main highlights in the budget as far as some things that affected municipal light and water. We'll be bringing to the council next month for our rate increases. We're looking at a straight across the board on the three utilities, water, sewer, and electric, a 3.65% rate increase. On your average residential home on a winter bill, that's about $5 a month between water, sewer, and electric.
So Lane, and going back to the 20 million from the state, and in this morning's Telegraph, they said that municipal light and water would leap from 35.1% to 184.7 million. So the majority of that is those things that you just mentioned, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Some bond projects and those things we just mentioned, correct. Don, do you have anything to add?
No, yeah, that was a significant piece. No, it's been certainly challenging. The budget process always seems to be, but the hard work over the last couple of years of everyone on staff and council support has enabled us to start to look in some places that we've not been fortunate enough to do, and to do some of the things like Lane is referring to with respect to a suggestion about a 40-cent levy. 3 or 4 years ago, that would have spooked me quite a bit, but I think we are getting closer to being in a place to actually be able to have those conversations. And I feel like the revenues, we have some open-mindedness to possibly looking at some of our revenue sources and modernizing those. Department heads do an extreme amount with respect to saving, but I think for several years, in my opinion, revenues have really been some of our biggest challenges. So.
And I just want to take a moment to say that, this budget just doesn't magically appear in these notebooks in front of us. A lot of people spend a great deal of their time, effort, sweat, occasional tears, and sometimes blood getting this document in front of us. So thank you to all of you, Dawn, Lane, and everyone else who spend all their time doing it. It's part of what makes the town successful, and it's part of what guarantees our future success. So thank you.
I would just ask each of you between now and when you actually go to pass the budget in the upcoming weeks, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'll try and answer them, or Dawn or any of the staff will try and answer them as best you can. And I just want to reiterate, it's because of the quality of staff that we have that we're being able to make these significant improvements in our budget in the last couple of years. Every one of these people that are behind me work hard every day to make sure that there isn't frivolous spending, that we're making sure we're making the best investment into our people and our equipment and our infrastructure. And, they work hard every day, and I appreciate every one of them, so.
I'm kind of intrigued that you've been able to maintain this level with the inflationary pressure that you've been dealing with, so thank you on that. Regarding the municipal light and water, how much of that increase, Lane, is projected increase in electrical costs from NPPD?
So NPPD does not have a rate increase projected for the next couple of years. However, we have not had an increase in our rates in electric since 2017, and there has been inflationary. I mean, it's not just the cost of power that affects our electric department, it's the cost of everything else as well. Also with that, we've been getting a purchase power credit. Is that what it's called, Scott? Yes, the purchase power credit. Last year, the last couple of years, it was a 10% credit on our actual power. This coming year, it's dropping to 5%, and it'll probably drop off after that. And so even though it's not a rate increase, we're not getting that credit back, and so that was part of the adjustment in that as well.
And then you said a significant water project that's gonna be bonded. What is that?
It's a project we already did a few years back that the bond is just hitting now. The first payment comes this year. And we have the water project that's going on right now that will be bonded out in the next couple of years along Jeffers Street. That'll be coming in, and
I wanna thank you too for, the crews have been out working on the streets. And, probably most of you know I drive an old S10 and it doesn't have very good springs in it, so I know exactly where all the bumps are, and it's much smoother. So thank you.
good. I guess one last thing with bringing up that, one thing that's really been exciting and refreshing the last few years, cross-department cooperation. We've really been working, the departments have been working really well together, helping each other out. In fact, this last 3 weeks, the water crew's been pouring sidewalk in Centennial Park, because we've been so short of park help, and they've been pouring sidewalk there. Scott's guys have been working on lights for the Centennial Park playground, street department, water department, sanitation. They all work together. Doug's crew from the wastewater treatment plant has helped with some of the city remodel. All the departments have helped move furniture and things. I mean, there's just been a lot of cooperation between the departments. There's been a lot of cross work together, which is saving the whole entire city money on both sides, both on the general side and on the utility side. And we're continuing to strive for these departments to work together, people to get to know each other. It's just, it's been really great to see, and I think the department heads would attest to that fact as well. Working together, they can call each other up and say, hey, can you help us with this? And just about any department will go help with that. And years ago, we did not see that. So it's been really neat to see that change.
I guess I would just like to commend all the department heads for working together and trying to keep your budgets low and I live on a street where I can pretty much tell what's going on in town, what goes by, and I know when we're short of officers, I can tell. There's no cruisers, but there are now, and I really appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you all.
Any last questions? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.